Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our final webinar of National Public Works Week. We're excited to have Robert here from Watersheds Canada to talk about wild waterfronts. And so I'm just going to hand it right over to him to get started.
Great. Good morning. What a what a wet day to talk about water. It's a pleasure to be invited to participate in the National Public Works Week. Did I get that right? National Public, yeah. And we are Watersheds Canada, and we have a great relationship with municipalities across the province. In terms of our messaging, municipalities play a critical role in promoting shoreland protection and all the great values around water. And for people on the call, on the webinar here so far, I'm sure you can appreciate that many municipalities have major part of their tax base is the cottage crowd, so that we have people visiting your municipality on kind of a part-time basis. They're not permanent residents, but just the same, they're taxpayers, and we find that sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect what's going on with the municipal level in terms of priorities and with what's going on with uh, kind of waterfront thinking. So we're going to get into those topics today. But first, I guess I'll introduce my organization, and I'll personally introduce myself. Watersheds Canada is now into our 23rd year. We are a national charity. We are small but mighty. We are a team of eight, including myself. Oh, no, I stand corrected. We're a team of 10 now. We've got a couple of summer students that just started a couple of weeks ago. So we're based out of Perth, and our organization started, as a matter of fact, as an environmental committee off of a lake association, and started developing programs. And anyways, years later, we became charitable status with a national name. And we are national in the fact that we are developing programs at a regional level. And I call it eating our own cooking. We develop programs, make it work, and then we scale it up and provide it to program delivery partners across the country. So I'll be introducing you to a couple of those programs today. But our mission is freshwater stewardship. We are a very hands-on organization, and I have a passion for community-based stewardship work, community-based conservation work. This is what I've made my career in since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I was toting behind my dad on the trout stream in my hometown of Ramara Township and Aurelia. And this is just a great opportunity for me through Watersheds Canada to to really live out my love for water and my appreciation for local conservation efforts. I do have great respect for municipal staff and particularly heavy equipment operators, public works crews. In 2017, I had one of the probably the worst roads in in Ontario, but $1 million grant came to my road. But prior to that, uh, the mayor, who was the county warden at the time, J. Murray Jones, appointed me to his special committee, a roads committee, and it was great because it was an experience for me to learn about the realities of municipal staff and what it takes to grade roads, the cost per kilometer to maintain a road, all the considerations that are involved in terms of environmental impacts, and it really gave me a public understanding of what's involved at public works level as just Joe average kind of civilian. But I was picked on the committee because I was one of the neighbors that wasn't yelling at the township. I was asking, how can I help? And I know that there's a lot of people in your community that are probably trying to tell you how to do your job all the time. And your team takes a front line on that interface with with the general public, and I'm sure things get pretty heated sometimes because people are passionate and they have their own priorities, but they don't probably realize how much municipalities really truly care, especially frontline staff, about environmental values. So here we are, National Public Works Week, which coincidentally ties in with National Biodiversity Week or Biodiversity Day, which was yesterday. How are we doing there for attendance? Do you want me to stall a little bit, buy more time, or just jump right in, Kelly?
Jump right in. Yeah,
Okay, great,
go.
great. Well, I usually begin my presentations, and feel free to have camera on if you care to. It's up to you, however you feel, and feel free to go uh, mic, mic off to throw in a question or a comment. I'd be interested to know where people are from, which as we call what watershed you represent. I see there's folks from Mattawa there, from municipality of Calvin. Anyways, great. Proud to be here. And I usually start these presentations by asking a kind of a silly question, but bear with me. I'm going to ask everybody here to take, I don't know, 12 seconds to think on a favorite childhood memory. 12 seconds, go now. Okay. So I've already been out front with this, told you like how I grew up trout fishing with my dad. And usually what I find if I go around the room to, like let's lean into the answers here. Usually what we find is 95% of people that have 12 to 20 seconds to think about a favorite childhood memory, almost always it comes up with a water experience, right? Swimming at the cottage, fishing with my dad, on the lake, being involved in nature. So I set that up because this webinar is going to get into some science stuff, and I am not a scientist, but it's important to have kind of the backdrop of what this is all for, that we truly need water in our lives, and water is, basically defines us as Canadians, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned. Go to the next slide. Yeah, so one of the programs of Watersheds Canada is exactly for this kind of webinar, really. A program developed, it's called Planning for Our Shorelands. And in that program, we've developed uh, a number of resources which are really important, especially for municipal staff, counselors. And the program was developed to bridge the gap between, kind of the divide between economic needs and environmental concerns. And there are some municipalities that have considered shoreline preservation bylaws, have considered ways in their community that they can uh, promote vegetated shorelines versus a hardened shoreline. Um, uh, so we put together a number of resources: how to achieve environmental net gain at the waterfront, a guide to shoreline planting, a number of resources that are available through this link. And Kelly told me before the webinar started that we're going to send all this out. But where I'm going to lean into this morning is the science behind vegetated shoreline buffers. Again, I am not a scientist like Kelly. I'm a comms guy, but hey, if I can send it your way and you can absorb this information, then that this is all about developing knowledge, not only for yourself, but also that you might pass on to your staff, but also people in your community. And there really is a lot of science uh, based on the work of Watersheds Canada. We are a habitat restoration crew, and we love our work. We're very hands-on. We're boots and shovels on the ground all the time. And what you'll see in this presentation is some of that work. So I'm always careful with my expression. It's shoreland, not shoreline. And the reason we call it a shoreland over a shoreline is that we're very careful that the term shoreland encompasses the entire area that brings the beauty, health, and enjoyment of the water, which comes not just from that little, the interface between the water and the land. It comes all the way from the upland. So that really gets us thinking in terms of what we have to do to be responsible around the lake. That is not just our activities in the water or right at the water's edge, but it's in around the upland. But our specialty is the riparian zone, or what we call the ribbon of life. So my goal today in this presentation is to provide actionable advice on what can happen on shorelands, not shorelines, on shorelands to improve water quality and by extension, all lake experiences for nature and people. And those are two critical parts, right? Nature and people. And they both can, work simultaneously. My organization, by the way, for people just coming on the call, is a charity. We are non-regulatory. We are not anti-development. We just promote sustainability. We've been very successful in working with municipalities and lake associations, conservation clubs, even school groups. Um, I'm really proud of our organization because our message is, like our message is non-threatening. It's not, we're not on a high horse. We are just simply providing good science backed by roll up your sleeves stewardship initiative. We've got the elbow grease to go along with our message, as you'll find out today. Um, so this is kind of the problem that Canada's lakes and rivers are facing, and it's just reality where we are. In my first slide, you saw this, wild waterfronts, this nice nature scene. You didn't see any buildings, did you? And we like to think that all lakes and rivers are just pristine like that. Well, guess what? Our province is, talking about more buildings and more homes built faster and all this other stuff. So we have to brace ourselves, and we already have, for the reality that more people, especially since COVID, and have Wi-Fi, right, will travel or work from home. So the 1,800 square foot cottage is now, a 6,000 square foot home, permanent residence. So there's more demand than ever for waterfront property. So as a result, municipalities and public works teams in particular have a real role to play in promoting good stewardship and freshwater protection measures on the water. So in the one half of this slide here, you see a home that's being developed, good looking home. Congratulations. But what's happening there at the water is what we'd call like a hardened shoreline, a grayscape. And our vision, Watersheds Canada vision, is 75%. 75% of shorelands to be left in a natural state. And our organization has a lot of experience in meeting with property owners on the lake because for the last 11 years with the Canadian Wildlife Federation, we've been delivering the Love Your Lake program that has assessed over 52,000 individual waterfront properties. And of those 52,000 properties we've assessed, only 22% of the properties have met the minimum criteria for shoreline habitat values. So even for somebody that has vegetative buffer zones, we can still come in and provide actionable advice, volunteer actions on their land to bring up that scoring of their property. And by the way, the scoring is based on a long list of scientific protocols that we go through, and these assessments are done from the water, like in a boat, and we actually look at their property and look at the whole shoreland experience. Now, our freshwater ecosystems have been identified as uh, the ecosystems most vulnerable to climate change worldwide, particularly by changing temperatures. And I'm sure that everybody on this call has at least heard of, or perhaps even dealt with in your municipality, the impacts of harmful blue-green algae, which is certainly a result of development pressures, but also runoff, phosphorus runoff. So climate change will affect shoreline properties in many ways, including increased extreme weather events such as heavy rains and floods, resulting in increased erosion and land loss. So in your municipality, your tax base is continuing to pay more for their property taxes, but actually have less to show for it. in some cases as a result of land loss, erosion. And in my neck of the woods, and by the way, I'm from Duro Dummer Township here, just east of Peterborough. Watersheds Canada is based in Lanark County in the beautiful little town of Perth. And in our neck of the woods, just in the last 3 years, we've had, my goodness, a Derecho tornado that went right down Highway 7 through Tweed. We had ice storm. I'm going to be running a chainsaw around my my property for the next 5 years, I think, to get things cleaned up. And luckily, I won a chainsaw from Kelly years ago when she worked at Still. So I know Kelly. Sorry, I had to throw that in, Kelly. Um, yeah, and then more rain during winter months, right? Do you remember wasn't this past winter, the winter before, the non-winter, more rain during the winter months and decreased ice cover. That ice cover is very important for our lakes and rivers. Some people say, oh, it was nice to have a mild winter. I don't miss winter. Well, we need, you know what, in Canada, we need good old-fashioned winters to protect our lakes and rivers. And changes in habitat range and spawning seasons for wildlife, including the warming water temps, particularly for there's only 2% of lakes in Ontario that are home to native lake trout, and lake trout are really temperature sensitive. So we need to have, we need to have all hands on deck to protect our watersheds and our lakes and rivers, particularly if we want to keep our biodiversity going strong. Decrease in water quality and more frequent algae blooms caused by warmer waters and nutrient-laden surface runoff. So here's a photo. If you didn't already pick up on it, that bay is just blocked right off with harmful blue-green algae. And now I've been talking already about development, and you see on this lake, Robert, there's no development here. What you don't see is on the other side of this photo, the other side of the lake is highly developed, but the blue-green algae knows no boundaries. It has actually drifted across to an area where it's naturalized. But make no mistake, this is a lake that has blue-green algae as a result of nutrient runoff on the developed side of the lake. And of course, I'm pleased to hear that Kelly, your webinar series this week included a presentation on invasive species. Invasive species is certainly a big part of the problems that or the challenges that our lakes and rivers face. Early spring thaw and longer plant growing seasons, and the increased summer drought and drier soils, resulting in increased fire hazards. And of course, anybody in Calabogie the last couple of years knows about wildfires, and it's certainly an impact and a threat for Ontario. So why are wild waterfronts important? Well, we know the issues that are facing our lakes. And the other issue I should have thrown in there, by the way, is road salt. And Watersheds Canada takes an active role on in terms of education about the impacts of road salt pollution, particularly on our lakes and rivers. And this is really increasing, and it's a number one threat to our lakes and rivers. And I know that municipalities are front runners in the concern about road salt. Your municipality doesn't want to apply, they don't want to oversalt. And our organization has lobbied for uh, better protection for in terms of litigation or liability prevention for private companies salting, because we want to make sure that they're not going to get sued for not salting enough when they're trying to do the right thing. Road salt's a major issue. As a result of that, through Kelly, I will send webinar participants a list that we made up of road salt tolerant native plants. And for municipalities that have road salt concerns, particularly going into our lakes and rivers, we now have a list of road salt tolerant plants that could be considered as part of municipal planting plans or uh, waterfront property owner planting plans, which we conduct. Shorelines are the most ecologically productive places on Earth. In fact, I've read recently that the riparian zone is 500% more productive than any other ecosystem. It really is the place where 90% of all aquatic life is born, raised, and fed in the first 10 to 15 meters from the shore. Excuse me. And 70% of land-based wildlife needs a natural shoreline to survive. We're talking deer, some of the species you see here are pollinators, great blue heron, of course, loons. Without a natural shore, many of these species would not be here. And we're talking this week as well about protection of endangered species and species at risk. And there are different priorities out there these days, and our organization is really focused on habitat protection to make sure that we have, thinking 7 generations ahead to make sure that these species are still going strong. And to get there, they're going to need this riparian zone. Am I going too fast? Am I all right for time? Okay, great. As a general rule of thumb, what you see above the ground is what you're going to get underneath the ground. So this, it's kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of a, I use it like a cul-de-sac kind of analogy. Somebody that own, a home in a cul-de-sac is going to really want to make sure that they're keeping up with their neighbors to get that lawn just, perfectly cut and looking great. But that doesn't make sense for people that are on the waterfront. So we're trying to get people away from this idea of having a manicured lawn right to the water's edge, because as you can see on the left, mowed grass, if you look in an inch above, you're going to get an inch below. Well, what work is that going to do to prevent pollution runoff or phosphorus runoff? So we are an organization that actively promotes the use of nature-based solutions, particularly native plants and shrubs and trees, for shoreline protection. And these native plants stabilize the soil. When plants are removed, the exposed soil is then vulnerable to erosion from waves, boat wakes, and water runoff. And this will only increase with climate change and the increase in extreme storm events. So you can see here the native plants that have the best root systems are best adapted to hold a shoreland in place. And we recommend using a mixture of trees, shrubs, and wildflowers to get all the types of root systems working together so they bind together, they bind that soil together. We promote, as we hope municipalities will too, we promote leaving fallen logs in place around the shoreland, around especially where the water meets the shore. Those fallen logs provide great habitat. We call it woody debris. It's structure, and this is critical habitat for aquatic life, and will become even more important with climate change. The habitat we will be much needed for shade and refuge for aquatic species, especially during heat waves. And these logs and plants also help break up wave impact. They reduce the wave energy to protect the shoreline from erosion. Natural shores also regulate water temperatures, which are increasing with climate change. Hardened shorelines absorb the heat, which then transfers to the cooler water. So you can see up in the top picture there, you can imagine how much heat is coming off that, concrete wall, that cement base, and it's going to actually transfer into the water and heat up the water. So by having a natural shore that you see in the bottom, we minimize the risk and shade out the shallow waters, which heat up more quickly. I'll assume that the topic of Canada geese is a bit of a love-hate relationship. There's mixed feelings, particularly for public works staff that probably have to deal with Canada geese, especially in your park areas and so on. And we have a solution. Watersheds Canada promotes a vegetative buffer zone again, because vegetative buffer zones actually deter geese that would otherwise occupy mowed waterfront lawns, and those mowed spaces really give them security because they can look over the shoulder and see predators coming at them. So again, our natural edge program provides a solution to waterfront property owners or municipalities facing issues with an overabundance of geese. So kind of putting all this together in real, in kind of a video format, I want to show you what we're talking about here is as it relates to under the water and a good shoreland management, care and protection will also help things that you really can't control, which is under the water in terms of you can't go in the water and plant. You can't do anything in the water really without a permit at all. And we'll take a look at underwater at a developed shoreline here. It works. So here we go underneath the water. And again, this is a developed shoreline. It's pretty barren, right? There's not a lot of, there's certainly not cover there. There's no biodiversity. I don't see any plants, food source. I don't see any minnows going on. So we'll go underwater of a healthy shoreline. That's what we like to see. Really abundant plant life. Uh, we got some minnows going on there. That's a really diverse ecosystem, really vibrant ecosystem. And as a self-proclaimed hardcore angler, this is the kind of spot where I want to fish. I don't want to fish those spots that have no habitat, no structure at all. So it's a message to anglers as well. If you want good fishing, and then fishing, of course, is a economic driver for municipalities, we need to get everybody talking about shoreland protection. One of the best compliments we ever received, I think, with this program I'm about to introduce now, called the Natural Edge, is our flagship program for Watersheds Canada. One of our participants said, through this program, I went from being just a property owner to being a custodian of the lake. I love that message because we now have somebody that understands that their small part of the lake, to do things right, they are making a really big difference. And if that was to be echoed across the lake, we wouldn't have to worry about things like erosion and harmful blue marine algae and all the other topics. We need everybody in the lake community, including the municipalities, to be thinking in terms of a naturalized shoreland. And we do this, we carry out this message through our program called the Natural Edge, which comes with a really sophisticated app. And this app is brought right to private property owners with a free site visit from our staff or from our program delivery partners. And in Ontario, we have a number of program delivery partners, including the Severn Sound Environmental Association, Muskoka Watershed Council, Quinte Conservation, Cataraqui Conservation. A number of conservation authorities partner with us, as well as other nonprofit organizations. And even in Haliburton, we have Haliburton Master Gardeners involved in our program. And the way this works is we provide a free site visit. We've developed a native plant database. And with the property owner, we walk the property owner through what their concerns are and what their needs are for the property. And again, we try to achieve about a 75% planting plan, and we develop a planting plan with the property owner. And we make sure that we suggest plants that are not going to grow up so high that they block, primary viewing points, that we have a property that will grow up to be really something that they can be proud of in terms of aesthetics and, of course, doing its job in terms of watershed protection. So here's one of our sites. Sorry, just catching up here on my notes. Yeah, here's one of our sites. This is actually one of our favorite sites to show off. You can see this is the same property. It looks different, but you can see the before and during pictures. So this property was in bad shape. The property's owners, they thought their only alternative was riprap, which costs approximately $300 per linear foot. So 100 feet of shoreline would have cost $30,000, and we did this entire project for about 2 grand. So through native plant opportunities, it's really pennies on the dollar and much more cost effective, but also benefiting ecosystems and wildlife. So just 3 years later, hold on, here's what we did. Boom. That's the same property 3 years later. No riprap, no $30,000 budget, just shovels and native plants and working the uh, shoreland science that we've been kind of talking about here. And I'm proud to say that to date, our organization has restored, this actually needs to be updated. We've restored over 40,000 meters of shoreline. And we've planted over 150,000 native trees and shrubs and wildflowers. We're now getting involved in agricultural work. We've been involved in uh, meeting with farmers and taking care of riparian zones across farmlands. And just recently, we've been involved with Ducks Unlimited and Delta Waterfowl and Wildlife Habitat Canada to build riparian zones around newly constructed wetlands. So, yeah, the word's getting out about our great work, and all this stuff is really hands-on, good old-fashioned, elbow grease. And what I really like about it, what I'm really proud of this, is we've got school groups, First Nation communities, municipal leaders coming out to be involved in this project. And we live in a world where there's all kinds of summits and, big global talks. And what's the expression? Think globally, act locally. Um, what I'm really proud about is we have people come out to our events and do these plantings, or we empower waterfront property owners to take on some of our work or take on some of our programs, give them advice, and all of a sudden they are the talk of the lake, and they are now leading the message. And we're really proud of how people become, through our programs, become ambassadors for watersheds protection. And this is a real opportunity for the future. I think the good old days of volunteer effort and partnerships, the good old days of people getting involved in communities. There's more to environmental work than just holding up a placard and petitioning the government. We need to be hands-on and active, and I think that our programs are reasons for hope for the future, green future for protected lakes and rivers. And we've got a lot to protect, don't we? In Ontario alone, there's over 250,000 lakes. Um, Here's some of our resources that I will link out through Kelly to participants and anybody involved in the Association of Ontario Road Supervisors uh, group. And I will be at your trade show in Woodstock. I'm looking forward to that. Um, and a Wildflower Garden Guide. So these are really popular publications, and they're all available for download on our website. But we also have hard copies, which I will bring into the trade show. And we've taken a lot of work with a lot of care when developing these guide books and information. And we are always pleased to meet with municipalities. I've done a number of delegations actually to environmental committees and even councils at large to talk about our great work. Just to kind of conclude, I've been talking mostly about stuff that happens on the shore, but I want to mention that we're also doing a lot of things in the water, particularly for fish habitat. Over the last 10 years, our organization has taken on, we've completed, I should say, over 55 fish habitat projects. And I'll quickly run through what they are. We've been developing a program to restore walleye and lake trout spawning beds. These are traditional spawning grounds that have become, over the years, almost completely locked down in terms of productivity. Why? Because they're covered in silt, and they just over time they become very unproductive. So with permits and oversight from the Ministry of Natural Resources. In fact, I want to tell you that the Ministry of Natural Resources does not do this work themselves. They cheer us on, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. because of years of budget cuts and different kind of priorities, they're not necessarily doing the in water habitat work, but they're cheering us on because we are on our own initiative finding funding through Bass Pro Shops, Cabela's Outdoor Fund, through Honda, through different corporate partners, recently through the Environmental Damages Fund, OFAH, and a long list of groups have been contributing to the cost for us to go to communities with our habitat restoration work. And what we've been doing is actually going to some of these spawning beds with with a water pump, a high pressure hose, like even a fire hose, and a silk curtain. We've been in the water washing the silt off these spawning beds using brushes, and that's actually what my team was doing on this particular day on Big Clear Lake near Arcona. And we did a great job on this is a walleye spawning bed, and we use pressure washers and brushes to clean off this bed, and all that silt is collected in a silt screen. We get the silt screen up on land and get it cleaned off so it's out of the water. And then in this past winter, we came back on frozen ice with 17 tons of washed river stone, put it on the ice, laid it all out, raked it all out. So when ice melts, it just falls right into place on top of a walleye spawning bed that was cleaned up, in the previous year. So our volunteers went out in boats in late April, on April 17th, as a matter of fact, with flashlights, and they did that so they could count spawning walleye. They've never seen so many walleye on the spawning bed. So we really made a difference on that lake, as well as many other sites we've done for lake trout as well. We've also been dropping in brush bundles, developing brush bundles, using UV protectant rope to tie up brush bundles anchored down with a couple of cinder blocks. And woody debris is a natural component of lake life. With more property owners doing this kind of yard maintenance cleanup, we find that some lakes, developed lakes, have less debris coming into the water, and that's a natural occurrence, and it should be promoted, as I mentioned earlier. But these brush bundles help supplement that or help bring that back, and they're highly effective. We drop in a brush bundle, we go back the next day with an aqua view, and there's fish on it, and it's just full of all kinds of species, pike, bass, even turtles and frogs and minnows, of course. So these brush bundles, again, is another example. We've got great community engagement. It's a real feel good when we arrive to a lake with this idea. Volunteers come out with fresh baked muffins and juice and beer afterwards, and they come in and they help us with these projects. It's just, I'm being really sincere because it is a I love the energy and the vibe from the community that comes together to do these projects. It really gives me hope for the future. And it's something that people will talk about forever that, not only do I live on the lake or I use the lake or I visit the lake, on this day with Watersheds Canada and these partners, I actually, gave something back. We've also been doing work on trout streams. Our work has actually saved one of the last native brook trout streams in Lanark County, and we've been doing that by planting willows and getting shade cover around cold water streams. And this is a lot of work. This is not done by mechanical, going behind a machine and putting trees in. This is tough work, and we're working in the elements. Matter of fact, right now on this rainy, crappy day, I've got a crew down in working in the area of concern with Mohawk Council of Akwesasne doing a shoreline restoration project down in Cornwall. And I should be out there with them, but I'm staying cozy in my own house here. But anyways, no, we've got a great team. This is part of my team right here. We also develop education programs. We recognize that although many of us have had the opportunity to grow up on the water or have the opportunity to be invited to the lake at a cottage, do some camping, do all that kind of thing. We live in a we live in a country with a lot of particularly new Canadians have never had that exposure to these kind of things. We have a lot of families that are, city bound. They don't necessarily have experiences with backcountry lakes and this kind of thing. Although we do a lot of work on Great Lakes, there's water all around us, really. But we provide a nature discovery backpack program to public libraries where kids can sign out a backpack full of educational guides and tools and equipment, magnifying glasses, dip nets, and all kinds of material, and discover nature in their own community without without a penny of cost. So we're really proud of our programs. We're proud of our staff, and it's just been really exciting to talk to municipalities that obviously care as much as we do. That's why you're here on this call about waterfront protection. So I've just gone on enough, but I appreciate this time, and I'll perhaps get some questions and get right into some brass tacks with some questions here. But thanks, Kelly, for the opportunity.
Thanks very much for joining us, Robert. As Robert had mentioned, obviously this is being recorded. I'm going to send this out to everyone who registered, as well as some of the PDF attachments and links that Robert referred to in this. So you will get a package with all of this information as well. And I think it's a great opportunity for municipalities to connect with Watersheds Canada, and also just a little shout out for our local associations when you're looking for guest speakers at your local association meetings, and that this is another great opportunity to have Robert or someone from his team out to visit with your local association and your municipalities. So I will open it up. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, good morning, Ann.
Um, as you know, I'm in the Mattawa watershed.
Yeah, great.
There's a project that's been kind of on the table for several years regarding Talon Lake. They're trying to restore the lake as they find there was a lot of siltation that was released into that lake.
Okay.
Is that something that I could direct your contact information to?
Yeah, siltation is a big occurrence these days on many lakes. Where we come in is opportunities to bring back uh, spawning beds. And I guess the bigger question would be to find out what's causing the siltation to begin with. But yeah, by all means, let's talk about that. And we would love to work in your community too. So what we usually do is it's kind of reverse engineering here. We find the sites, and that's usually the case. We've got more projects than we do funding, but this is great to know what's ahead because we are very tenacious with our grants and funding proposals and corporate sponsorship pitches and so on. If we can use your municipality as a case where they need the work of Watersheds Canada, and perhaps you and your staff could provide us some partnership advice locally in terms of volunteers and equipment donations or material donations. That's the way this works. But by all means, let's give us a call. And you're hitting on an important issue for lakes and rivers, especially municipalities like Mattawa that really count on recreational angling as an economic driver and tourism and so on.
Perfect. I'll reach out.
Thanks, Ann.
Thanks, Robert.
Thanks.
Hi, Robert.
Hey,
Great presentation, by the way.
thank-
You talked about road salts briefly.
yeah.
Are there any regulations around using road salts in the areas of the watershed or where drainage is going to occur into the lakes? I'm from Lake Simcoe.
Yeah, well, yeah, and Lake Simcoe is the hot topic right now, and it's especially with talk of more development around the lake, and Lake Simcoe has seen a drastic increase in road salt, and it's clearly having an impact on the fisheries and aquatic plant life. There are some standards that are you know. That have to be upheld. Operators do not want to put oversalt. We've learned that through our discussions, for example, with the folks at Landscape Ontario, which have been really at the forefront of speaking with the Ontario government about ways to manage road salt in Ontario. But there's also a coalition that Watersheds Canada is proud to be part of. It's called the uh, Road Salt Pollution Coalition, and the Rescue Lake Simcoe Coalition is certainly a lead on that for Lake Simcoe. Um, Yeah, and what we deal with, particularly with road salt, is education. We double down on education to make people aware of what's going on with the impacts of road salt. And road salt is not, we're not talking about road salt like somebody just stepping out of their house and putting a little bit of salt on their, on their cement step or sidewalk. Um, in cottage country, for example, road salt is applied by private contractors, and these private contractors, I've heard from them directly, they don't want to oversalt for two reasons. One, they care about the environment, and two, it costs them more money. But when they're under contract, they have liability pressures from the people that have hired them. And they don't want slips and falls. So there's a message that they should put more salt down. So yeah, there needs to be a review of alternatives to road salt, as well as limitations to road salt and knowing when to use road salt properly. And we tend to think about road salt as being applied on those really super cold days. But as we get more into, the impacts of climate change, the day that slip and falls happen are actually the warm days. It's those days where you get the plus temps, where you get a little bit of surface water, and then it freezes up that night. So it's not those cold snaps and those big ice storms or the big snowstorms that are causing. It's actually a warming temperature will create more demand for perhaps road salt. So it's something that we really need to tackle right away, and it's certainly having an impact on our lakes and rivers.
Sorry, I muted there. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm going to send you, as well as everybody on the webinar series here, our road salt education kit that was developed in the last couple of years, and it actually has a link to so that municipalities can share what they're doing and what their approach is.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much for your time, Robert, and for your presentation. I know his contact information is up there. If you don't have a chance to grab it, more than happy to make those connections for you through AORS. But we are happy to have Watersheds Canada coming to our trade show. So if you're going to be in Woodstock in a couple of weeks, be sure to see Robert there, and as well as looking at more opportunities that Watersheds Canada and AORS can work together in the future. So thank you very much for joining today. And like I said, you'll get a recording and all the information sent out to you in the next few days. So enjoy your Friday and have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.